Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm a sophomore English major, and this is my video summarizing and analyzing the movie Citizenfour. So, a quick summary of this movie: it was filmed in Hong Kong right after Edward Snowden had leaked um, classified information to the press about the work he was doing for the NSA and for the CIA. Um, so, in the movie, Edward Snowden reaches out through an encrypted email to the documentary filmmaker Laura Poitras about information he has regarding classified information and classified um, work that he's been doing for the NSA. And he reaches out to her through email, and basically, where the title of the movie comes from is he refers to himself as Citizenfour. So, a little bit about Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden was a computer professional, so to speak, working for the defense contractor Booz Allen Hamilton, and he was on loan, as he puts it, to the NSA, so working for them with classified information. And he made the decision to come forward with this information and felt it was his duty as an American citizen to release this information to the public about everything that was going on behind the scenes of the internet and behind the screen of our computer, basically. And so he sort of saw himself as this social and political renegade who was burdened with this information from the work he had been doing, and decided to make it public. And so, like, a few big themes that go on throughout this movie are the idea of metadata. And so before this, I had no idea what metadata was, but basically it is what links us and our information together. And so it's comprised of things like our search histories, our phone calls, and our personal information that can all be found on the internet. And basically, when things are linked up together that show us in a bad light, it can be really detrimental and ultimately can have major consequences for us. Like the example given in class was about butt dialing, so to speak, some Iraqi bomb maker a couple times, which is totally accidental, but if that information lands in the wrong hands, then it can be seen as a really threatening thing that needs to be acted upon. And so basically everyone has this sort of linkability that links them from one person to another, links them to things out there that could potentially get us in trouble with the government. And so what Edward Snowden felt was that the advancing data that the government has on us and the advancing information the government has on us does infringe on our civil liberties as citizens of the United States and our right to privacy, which is basically non-existent these days when it comes to the internet and social media and all those things. So yeah, Edward Snowden released the information that the US government has deals with companies like Google and Yahoo, where they're able to see basically every keystroke we make, every search we make, every email we send, which is something previously to 2013 that wasn't publicly known by everyone, but these days it's sort of something we just take for granted as information. A lot of what this movie explores is how privacy can be interpreted in a post 9/11 America. So how 9/11 and the events that occurred during that time really affected how Americans believe they have a right to privacy and how everyone is sort of on high alert of being a suspected terrorist or something like that. And so my personal views on this movie, I really enjoyed watching this. It was a subject that I didn't have any information on before. I don't know a lot about metadata and privacy when it comes to the internet. I think growing up as a millennial, we sort of have this idea instilled in us that everything you do can be traced back to you, and even, everyone has their camera screen covered up on their computer these days because we just assume that people are watching us and people are listening to us, which is actually really true. Like, for example, if I'm talking to my friends about a restaurant that I really want to go try, it somehow pops up as a like suggested ad for me. Um, and it's kind of scary how real it is that we are being listened to, and our phones and our computers and our social media are really being surveyed these days. And so recently, in terms of current events, there's been a lot in terms of all of this in the recent years. A couple things are hacking by Russians in the most recent election. There's been a lot of press about that, about whether or not it happened, and if it's going to happen again, and who, um, hired, so to speak, the Russians to hack into the election, and how to prevent that. Also, something that I read on CNN recently was that there's been some talk between the CEO of Microsoft and the U.S. government about principles regarding like obtaining information. So in criminal cases, there's been controversy whether or not the U.S. government has the right to take personal information off phones or computers to aid in their investigation and maybe incriminate people. And so, what the CEO of Microsoft was saying is that there needs to be updated laws in Congress that reflect how fast moving and how quickly the digital landscape is updating, and how basically that a lot of the laws in Congress don't reflect how modern everything is these days, and how there is nothing about, what privacy means in terms of internet. We know what privacy means in terms of people being able to look in our window. We know that that's an infringement of privacy, but we don't necessarily know that people looking at our keystrokes and looking at our search history is also an infringement of privacy. Also, we know that the standards of privacy laws between the US and Europe are very different, and so in terms of the government receiving information from other countries, it's a lot more difficult than it would seem to be, because of the way the US Constitution regards internet security versus the way the European government regards internet security and infringement of privacy. So yeah, this movie, all in all, I thought was a really great example of recent events that have really affected the years to come, and we're seeing the results of that now. I thought this movie was really important for us as millennials and college students to be aware of, in terms of how much our presence on the internet and in social media makes a difference in really all of our decisions to come, and how big our internet footprint, if you want to call it that, really does matter in our lifetime. In terms of Edward Snowden and where he is now, I believe that he's in some sort of political asylum in Russia. I don't know if that has anything to do with the current or the recent controversy about the Russian hacking in the election. But, it really did talk about in the movie how much his decision to come forward affected his personal life, and was going to affect all of his, choices to come, and whether or not he was going to be prosecuted by the U.S. government, because he did, make legal promises that he wouldn't release this classified information, which he did. And so, yeah, this movie, all in all, I thought was really interesting, and I'm really glad we watched it. And yeah.